Yes, yes. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. They were young children like that we saw earlier here a few years ago. And let's remember that children grow up, and it happens very quickly. And how thankful we are that these three are still singing here after many years. I had the joy 2 hours ago of meeting a man who was very thankful that attended here growing up as a little boy. His name was Michael. He couldn't be more appreciative of the bus workers that came to get him, the Bible time, vacation, summer school we used to have. Very thankful and appreciative. So let me encourage Sunday school teachers. Sunday school is awesome because you volunteer your life to teach, to work with music groups. What a blessing it is to see children grow up and to be thankful. Many of them that grew up here are not here today, but thank God for those that are. We probably are more responsible, and again, I don't say this boasting or bragging, but we probably put people back in all different churches than any other church in Medford. And again, I'm not saying that lightly, but I'm saying we influence people get back to God, and many of them go to different churches that aren't exactly like this one. And I want us all to glory in that we're not spending our money in vain. We're not keeping the bills paid in vain. It's all for God's glory, and we won't know the real results until we get to heaven. So again, we're going to need, as we grow, we're going to need more Sunday school teachers. Let me put that thought in your heart and mind. Some of these teachers have more students than they can handle on a big day or even a regular day, so we want to divide classes and grow. That's how Sunday schools grow. We need to have the faith to do that and the privilege of seeing that happen here. So if you're interested in a teaching position, you become a helper first, you become a secretary to a class, and you get an idea then of what's involved, and we proceed from there. We're studying this wonderful privilege we have of supporting missionaries around the world, so that not only what we're doing here, we're doing it in 25 other locations at the same time. Again, if you divide that all up on a 24-hour time zone that we have, we got churches meeting now in every, if we could do, that may be a way to spread our missionaries to try to get one in every time zone. Brother, you can figure out how we're going to do that, who we'd have to take on, but we got missionaries in China, we got missionaries in Scotland, England, all these different time zones, so that it would be great if we could know that we're preaching the gospel through the ministry of our giving in all 24 time zones. We're giving our tithe. We learned in Sunday school, the men's class, that the Scriptures teach three principles of giving. The first one is that we give 10% right off the top of our total income. That means if you get a birthday present, you don't spend it all on yourself. You set aside a tenth of that to give it back to God to show your appreciation. And that's how you get more money. By giving money, that shows your love for God, and He gives you more money. Someday you could be a millionaire if you get a hold of this principle. The other principle is applicable just as true. You could die in poverty. We just sang a song about a man that was Jesus. Who was it? A man who was homeless, I mean. I gave you the answer. You can't get that one wrong. Jesus was homeless. Does that mean he was in poverty? Yes, he was physically for the 3.5 years he was here on the earth as a minister. He had, of course, parents that took care of him. He worked as a carpenter growing up, but for those 33.5 years, he would be considered in poverty, especially the last years when he traveled, not having a hotel or motel or a motorhome to travel in. The second principle, of course, is sacrificial giving. Sacrificial giving. We could all use that 10% to do something else, or the money we give above and beyond that to do something for the flesh, to please ourselves, pleasure. And I tried that for 20 years, and it ended up I was bankrupt. I became more selfish the more money I got. I put it in this pocket and this pocket, and then when I turned 16, I went to the bank and took it all out and went and bought a car. And then I was broke again, especially when you had to pay for the insurance, the motor oil, the gasoline, and all the rest that goes with it, registration, taxes. If somebody gives you a car, it might not be a good deal because there's a whole lot more expenses that come with the gift if you expect to drive it, that is. It may end up having a dead battery. It may end up having a leak in the radiator. It may have all kinds of problems, and you're going to need lots of money to keep a car on the road. The point is, don't use God's money for pleasure until you've given Him off of the top, and He will bless you with the rest of it. I'm convinced that if you give God the first 10%, He'll make the next 90% go further. And we're not legalists, by the way. You don't have to give 10%. You don't have to give anything to God, and He still loves you. Isn't that a good deal? This church is not trying to look into your pocketbook or your checkbook. We are just trying to encourage you of what we've tried has worked. As Christians, it works. If you love God, you want to show your love by giving sacrificially. And this third principle we're talking about is a faith promise gift. That's even above and beyond that. As you pray that God would bring in the money, you'd have the faith to give it back to help others. We're in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 for just a few quick lessons. We are short on time today. We don't want the parents to worry about their kiddies here. They'll be getting out of here about the same time, 11:35, and we want them to get home safely. We're talking about giving faith promise with an attitude of willingness. 2 Corinthians chapter 8. We are not commanded to give above and beyond the tithing except to give an offering. Malachi chapter 3 says that we're supposed to tithe. That means 10%. That's where the word comes from. And then to give an offering. But an offering could be 5 cents. It could be $5. But the joy comes when you don't think about the amount as much as that, how can I best show my love for Christ? Look with me at this attitude of willingness. We see it in verse 8. We read it earlier. I speak not by commandment, but by occasion of the forwardness of others, to prove the sincerity of your love. This is an offering that proves the sincerity of our love. And then up in verse 12, we have this willing mind. For if there be first a willing mind, it is accepted according to that a man hath, and not according to that he hath not. In other words, we don't have to give an offering if we don't have anything to give. But if you're surviving this week, and if you have some money, you are eligible to have a willing heart and wanting to give it to help somebody else. Not the rest of the world is as wealthy as America. Why do so many people come to America? Because we're probably one of the most wealthy nations in all the world. We have so much here. And people come here to try to get in on the wealth, to get in on the bread wagon, so to speak. And so if you've been blessed, you want to be of willing mind. Look at verse 24, a proof of your love again. Therefore show ye to them and before the churches the proof of your love and on your half. I speak not by commandment, Paul says. There's 3 levels of doing anything we do. Sunday school teachers, deacons, bus drivers. If you're getting weary in your service, it may be that you're only doing it because you feel commanded to do it by God. That's the first level of anything we do, that we feel we got to do this. That's better than not doing it at all. The second higher level in this thing of our service, our giving, our ministry, whatever it is it's out of duty. Okay, there are lots of lost people everywhere. They're on the broad road and going to end up in hell. And so out of duty we go and do what we do. We give what we give out of duty only. And we're missing the full blessing of that third level of involvement, and that is I'm doing this willingly out of heart appreciation and love to show my thanks to God. Let's apply it to marriage. Some of you ladies got up this morning and said, okay, bless God, you want biscuits and gravy, you want scrambled eggs, you want bacon, ham, sausage. Okay, God said I'm supposed to obey you, so okay, here it is. Eat it and shut up. You fulfilled the commandment of being a wife that's providing food for your husband, but you only did it out of command, and the real heart wasn't there. And if you're like I am, you may have eaten it, but you may have ended up with indigestion because the relationship wasn't the best. And so if you put your money in that plate this morning and said, okay, God, here it is, but I wish I could hold on to it. I wish I could have it back. Or, God, I'm demanding you give it back because you said you'd bless me. That is the lowest level of giving, but it's better than not giving at all. Are you with me? You'll get somewhat of a more reward for giving it with a bad attitude than you would by not giving it at all. So don't condemn a church that's trying to get you a reward and get you the blessing to try to get you to the next level. And that is you saying out of duty, I want to try to save some of these boys and girls from committing suicide because they overdosed on drugs. They got drunk out of their mind and then got in a car and killed somebody. These precious children that are singing and smiling this morning as they walked across here, have a future ahead of them, and out of duty we do what we want, what we know we need to do to try to spare them the heartache of more drug-addicted young people that are running to the government to get a free dose of methadone, is it? Get a free dose. They're just being addicted from one drug to a lesser drug, but they're both drugs and they're both destroying the bodies of people. And we have the solution here in the Bible. We have the solution in a songbook. There's another book, though, we need to make sure that we have in proper perspective. What would that be called? It's not a hard question. It's not a trick question. I'll give you a hint. No, we already got the Bible, we got the songbook, and we got the pocketbook. We need all three if we're going to be spiritually blessed and spiritually balanced. But we need to have a willing heart. That we don't read the Bible because the preachers put Bible reading schedules back there, and we preach on that every January, every first of the year. We hammer home, you ought to be reading your Bible every day. If you don't read at least the New Testament once a year, you're not much of a Christian. We try to make you feel guilty. We try to pour things onto you so that you will accept the challenge and get the blessing from reading your Bible regularly. The earlier in the morning you read it, the better you'll be the rest of the day. You'll get wisdom that you're going to need throughout the day to make right choices, good decisions. And so everything in the Christian life, you can break it up into three levels. Okay, I'll start reading my Bible. That'll get the preacher off my back. I won't feel so guilty, so condemned, and so I'll start reading the Bible. Might God help us to do it of a willing heart, of a willing desire, and get the preciousness of it, the willingness to keep the commands. We're commanded to pray. We're commanded to read and study our Bible. We're commanded to be a witness and invite people to church and live a holy life. But we're also commanded to give at least 10% of our total income back to the Lord. You say, preacher, does that mean I have to give all before the taxes are taken out? Again, you read the Bible and you decide for yourself. Should the government come ahead? They usually take theirs right off the top, except the plumber who said, would you pay me in cash? And again, I'm not responsible for what he does with the cash, whether he shows that as income. And maybe all of us get some income cash. They call it under the table. And we avoid paying the government, who is providing us trash collection here at the church free of charge. They are providing us lighting on the streets. They're fixing the roads. And those who are trying to avoid paying a legitimate tax or whatever the government says we should pay, it's dishonest not to pay your fair share. They're providing a fire department to come at the moment we pick up the phone to protect us from total loss of property and life. So let's not be too hard on the government. They may be not doing some things the way we think they should do, but they're doing a lot of things as servants for us. Let's pray for our government and let's pay our legitimate taxes. But don't pay more than you have to. There's a whole lot of deductions you can take if you seriously study the subject, and I realize that's a big job in itself. So we're commanded to pay our taxes willingly, not grudgingly. Don't let it make you bitter that they're wasting so much of our money. If you're really concerned, run for office and see what you can do to clean it up, to make it more accountable for all of us. The same with our church. There's no private records here. I mentioned $200 cash that was put in my possession, one in a letter and one in person. I keep a running record of those cash offerings so that I'm accountable to you and God's people here for every dollar that comes across these plates as well as comes into my hands. Giving a faith promise offering is also an action. It's an action word of worship. One of the joys I get every Sunday is writing out our check, our offering to this church. I do it after I read my Bible. I look forward to that. That's a part of the specialness of this day. And again, I know a lot of you say, well, I only give monthly, or I get paid bi-weekly, so I just give it 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Let me encourage you to say, we don't sing 6 songs every Sunday so that we don't have to sing next Sunday. We break it up. It's like a diet. It's like a meal. We don't eat 3 meals for the whole day. Most people break it up into 3 small meals. And that gives you 3 things to look forward to, 3 joys. So again, it's not a big deal, but it's a preference, I think, that would help you to have a reason to come to church every Sunday. And by the way, these offering envelopes will keep you honest, if you want to be honest, because they're dated. And in case you're away for a week or you're sick, you'll be tempted not to forget that your church expenses go on a weekly basis. The missionaries' expenses go on a weekly basis. And that's why these are dated for you. We don't check the dates. We're not going to come scold you if you miss an offering. We don't even know. The deacons are so used to doing this, I don't think they even think, well, who gave $1,000? Who gave $500? Who gave 50 cents? They just doing their job. They're not there as judges or critical of who gives and who doesn't. But if you want us to rejoice with you, we don't mind. If you got the other $900 that we invested this week and you want to give God the glory that you can do that, why not? Let your light so shine before men. And if you have the right attitude, I don't even think you'll lose your reward. If you get a visitor to come to church and we call your name and say, hey, thank you, you set a good example. You invited somebody and they came. That's not going to lose your reward. That's going to set an example that will spread to others and say, well, there must be people out there that still want to come to church. So let's go find them. Let's work hard at it. I must have invited 20 people this morning, and none of them showed up. So I think I'll go home and have a poor pity party for old Thomas Michael. But maybe one of them will come tonight. And then maybe I can get a reward in heaven, especially if he or she gets saved and gets the joy of the Lord, because the church is paying for my gas to go and find sinners and get them saved, and we're paying to heat the water, so we got nice warm water in the baptismal tank. If anybody wants to get baptized this morning, we still have time for it. We have everything in place. If you're saved and you want to publicly identify with Christ, this thing of giving is an act of worship, and you need to enjoy it. Just like love is an action word, it involves doing. Look at Matthew chapter 5. We're supposed to prove our love. We're supposed to love our enemies. Are you upset with anybody today? This is what action love would do if you're having a problem. Love is a doing word. It's action, plus or minus feelings. You say, well, I don't feel like it, Pastor. I got bills to pay. I'm in debt, and I don't think I can give. Matthew chapter 5, verse 44. The boss is giving me a hard time. Your wife, your husband is struggling. Aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, children. But I say unto you, Jesus speaking, Matthew 5:44, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. And so today, let's realize that the world is filled with contrary people that are upset. They got negative attitudes. The level of our spirituality to be revealed by our response to those people. Those people are hurting. There's people in this room this week that are hurting, and you've had bad news. But we've had some good news as well. Some that were sick in the hospital or home again. Miss Linda Hill, home with her husband again, but she's still got a way to go. Brother Joe DiGregorio said he's so sore he can't hardly walk. He had surgery a few weeks ago. An infection set in. There's still healing to be done, but thank God there's progress being made also. And we want to have a willing heart in this thing of praying for and working together as a church and be willing to give out of our abundance and to be willing to look at these missionaries that come through here and smile at them and say, there's some people that really appreciate my sacrifice, my faith promises, keeping them on the field. Man, some people are more open down in Central America than they are up here. And so we're thankful that they can come back with greater numbers even than we have here, because some people's hearts are more open, and poverty many times brings people to Christ more than the wealth of America. Look at England. It has turned its back on the gospel, and it's a hard, cold field. All of Europe is, we should say, Western Europe especially, hardened to the gospel. Eastern Europe, not so far behind them in rejection of the gospel. Love is giving. Look with me in closing to Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5. The proof that love is a giving verb. It's an action verb, something that we can all be involved in. We can all set aside some of our income to help reach others for Christ. Just as God shows his love here, Paul exhorts the Corinthians to prove their love the same way he proved his love for us. Ephesians 5, verse 25, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the